This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S9. No, it's not. This is the Samsung Galaxy S9, and that's just to make the point, the obvious point that these two look almost identical. But when you flip them over, of course, the fingerprint scanner location has changed, which is a small thing, but a huge thing. And that's the whole deal with the S9. We're going to look at the S9 and the S9 Plus. They're kind of doing what Apple does. Sometimes Apple comes out with a new phone, and everybody says, well, that doesn't look all that important, but it's the sum of all the little things that really makes the phone feel that much better. Granted, it's not going to change your world if you already have a nice Galaxy S8 or S8 Plus, but some of the things are important. Something as simple as unlocking your phone got a whole lot easier. I mean, instead of having to find the fingerprint sensor in an awkward location, it's where it belongs, below the camera lens. It's a lot easier. For facial recognition login now, the iris scanner was the more secure one, but it was awfully slow and not so reliable if you're wearing glasses, particularly like me. Now they're combining facial recognition, the less secure method, with the iris to speed things up, so it becomes easy to just pick up and use your phone. You've got an improved camera. Stereo speakers. Boy, does that make a difference. No longer do I feel like every time I watch a YouTube video, I kind of wish I was on the iPhone just for the audio quality or any other phone with stereo speakers. There's all sorts of little things that just make it feel like Samsung was listening, and it's that much more of an enjoyable phone. We're going to look at it now. So here we have the Galaxy S8 and the Galaxy S9. Now, you're not going to be able to tell them apart very easily, are you? It's just amazing how similar they are here. It's almost the same casing, but there's a couple of important changes right here. And the blue one is the Galaxy S9. The most important one is the relocation of the fingerprint scanner. Everybody dinged Samsung last year for putting it beside the camera because it was a very long reach for your hand if you had small hands to get that high up, and it was too easy to confuse with the camera lens and everything else here. So now it's where the fates intended a rear fingerprint scanner to be below the camera, a little bit easier to reach. You're not going to confuse it with anything else. This is fairly tactile, even if it's not the most attractive thing you've ever seen in the world. Right here we have the same sensor that we had on the last generation model that can do your blood oxygen level. It can check your pulse. And using third-party apps, they're supposed to be trying to collect data to do blood pressure, but so far there's no real good app out there for that. But you hypertensives, keep an eye open for those apps in the future. Another important improvement is that we now have stereo speakers. The top is one speaker, which doubles as the earpiece, and the bottom has another one. It makes a world of a difference. It's louder, it's fuller, it sounds as nice as other good phones that have dual speakers and good quality audio, whereas Samsung phones sound a little thin and a little tinny before. Bottom here, the usual USB-C connector. Look, a headphone jack, yay! And you get some AKG earbuds in the box, which are okay quality. And this is your speaker right here. Microphone holes, you get the idea. They have gone with slightly more prominent antenna lines. It's just a matter of how they color it, really, compared to the last generation model. And it's available in your choice of black, this coral blue, which is very pretty right here, and also a new kind of purpley pink fuchsia color, which is nice. And here we have the S9 Plus, as forever. This is the 5.8-inch phone. This is the 6.2-inch phone. In terms of display size, you can see no matter which one you get, they're going to show a lot of fingerprints. These are still glass backs. That allows for wireless charging. That's the good part, but the bad part is, well, they do get pretty looking, you have to clean them. And also glass is delicate. They supposedly thickened the glass and made it even a bit tougher here, but you're definitely going to want a case with these. They have the Infinity Design display. It wraps around the edges. It's pretty as ever. Now, one thing to note is if you have long fingers like I do, I have fairly large hands for a woman and long fingers, the little one may be a bit of a problem because I wrap my hand around the phone and I'm constantly touching the wrong thing, trying to take a picture, holding the phone, and shutter button's not working because it's too busy paying attention to these. So it does have edge rejection, but yeah, it only goes so far. So if you have big hands, you probably want to shell out the extra bucks for the bigger model. Speaking of the bigger model, it is the more expensive. It's around $839, whereas the smaller one is $719. That works out to, it depends on your carrier. If you're doing monthly payment plans with somewhere in the 20s in terms of dollars in the United States, you can get these unlocked or you can get them from your carrier. It's nice from the get-go. They're always available unlocked from Samsung too. And the Unlocks model supports both GSM and CDMA carriers. So that means Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile all in one lovely phone. So what's new here? We have Android 8 Oreo. Yay, finally, now that we're actually seeing open betas for Android P, the next version of the operating system, we get to have Android 8 Oreo on a Samsung phone. Now, Samsung is pretty slow to update to new versions. We still haven't seen Oreo for the S8, the S8 Plus, or the Note 8 yet, but hopefully we'll see that soon. So there's that. Sort of going along with what Apple did, if you get the S9, the smaller phone with the 5.8-inch display, you're going to get a single camera lens. If you go for the S9 Plus, you're going to get the Galaxy Note 8 setup. You're going to have dual lenses there, and one is for the telephoto and one is for the standard mode. They're also used to generate those bokeh effects that you can do, where you just take a picture, it blurs out the background, you can tap on what you want to be in sharp focus, and then you can actually adjust the background blur afterwards. So if you really fancy that feature, it's going to be the bigger phone for you. Either way, you're getting optical image stabilization, OIS, on all cameras, all lenses, regardless of which size phone you buy, regardless of whether it's the telephoto lens or the normal view lens. And they have this new trick. It's actually a mechanical aperture setting. So you can go with f1.5 or f2.4. You've probably heard some about that. The lower the number, that means the wider the aperture. So it's great for low light. And f1.5 so far is the widest aperture we've seen on a phone. Why would you want to have both? Why wouldn't you want to let a lot of light in all the time? Well, people who are kind of into photography already know the answer to this. If you're shooting outdoors in bright light, if the aperture is super wide, sooner or later you can't really adjust the shutter speed anymore to compensate for that. You have blown out, washed out looking pictures. So I've noticed a lot of the outdoor pictures that actually will use f2.4 in auto mode, and still the shutter speed's at about 4,000ths, which is pretty high. So the end there is for you non-camera geek types is it means that you get better exposed pictures, whether you're shooting at the club at night in the dark or whether you're shooting pretty flowers on a sunny day. We got the latest, greatest Snapdragon 845 CPU in here. Honestly, is this a giant leap from the Snapdragon 835 from the previous generation or competing phones? Not so much. There's an improvement here in speed. It's not super huge. These days, phones are faster than most of us need. It's mostly used for AI and augmented reality and stuff like that, that kind of processing power. So it's not the most important thing. If you're in the US and China, you're going to get the Snapdragon. If you're mostly anywhere else, you're going to get Samsung's Exynos CPU, which is an excellent CPU as well. The Galaxy S9 has 4 gigs of RAM. The S9 Plus has more room for RAM, I guess, so you get 6 gigs of RAM inside there. So that's pretty decent. It's not going to beat out OnePlus with their 8 gig of RAM special there, but hey. As for the rest of the specs, you can see them on screen too. Those special things that we love that they're still doing at Samsung is a micro SD card slot. Take that, Pixel 2 phones, and a headphone jack. Boy, take that, any number of competing phones. So yeah, and like I said, you get those little earbuds in the box there. You can use whatever headphones you want. Nice variety to choose from there. No dongle required. The display resolution is the same as last year. It's still AMOLED. They're a bit brighter. There's still some of the best displays on the market. The colors, if you're using the default adaptive mode, are still blown out and more colorful than life. But you know, I go with that AMOLED photo setting, which is more like Adobe RGB. It's a bit more accurate, and I don't use the video adjuster, which can make things look, well, super duper vibrant, but not necessarily particularly accurate. It's up to you as to what you like there. So if you prefer a clean, really clean stock Android like the Google Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL, I totally get that. The good news here, though, is Samsung, the evil days of TouchWiz are pretty much gone. This is not an offensive-looking phone. The only thing that can be slightly offensive is Bixby here. That's their assistant, and it has a dedicated button, which thankfully you can disable. Some people like Bixby, that's up to you, but that's supposed to be their own little virtual assistant. We already have Google Assistant on here. That is one thing that Samsung is still a little bit frustrating with, because they are duplicating functionality. They have their own Samsung App Store. They have their own Gallery app versus Google Photos. So there's some duplication still going on. This is the unlocked model, so we don't have any carrier bloatware here at least. But in terms of the user interface, other than those duplications, it's pretty much looking like normal Android these days, which is a good thing. You still have the swipe from the side, the Edge apps over here that you can customize. Those are pretty handy. You've got the split screen functionality. A lot of people like that, particularly on the larger screen phone here. You've got shortcuts that are not so alien looking here, and you can pull down to get to all of your shortcuts. You can customize these shortcuts. You can set the order of these buttons right here at the bottom. There's all sorts of things you can do to make the phone feel like yours. You get the idea. Now, I'm not seeing any lag on this phone. It feels really quick. What's going to happen a couple of months down the road? Well, hard to say, but I'm a pretty hardcore user of the Note 8, and really it hasn't started lagging. And when it comes to battery life, that's what usually is a little bit of a gotcha with Samsungs. When you first get them, like right now, I've been testing both of these phones for a week now. Battery life has been great. The standby time is good. I haven't seen anything more than a 5% drop overnight for battery, and usually less. But as I can tell you with my Note 8 and my S8, this is going to probably change a couple of months down the road, and you'll see more particularly standby time being used, I have a feeling. 3,000 milliamp battery in the small one, 3,500 milliamp in the large one. Same capacity as last year. Samsung's still being cautious with batteries and not trying to overpack cells in there and lead to any Note 7 like go boom problems. Battery life on these is about average for flagship phones with these kind of features and a very high resolution display, which is to say 5.5 hours of screen on time, 6. It depends on how you use the phone and what you're doing with it. You know, if you're playing Super Mario Run all the time, not so much. The phone is IP68 water resistant, and just like last year's model, when they get too icky, I actually just give them a little wash in the sink to clean them up. Again, supports wireless charging. It has all the usual bells and whistles you'd expect from a high-end phone there. When it comes to cameras, Samsung is pushing this as being a big leap forward in camera. Now, the front camera is pretty much the same thing as last year's model, an 8-megapixel front camera, f1.7 lens. The rear is still 12 megapixel, and you know, it's really not about megapixels anymore. It's about the quality of the image. So don't be fooled by the fact that it's the same in terms of resolution. It does take better photos, but you know what? The S8 and the S8 Plus were some of the better camera phones on the market. So this is really going to be something that you camera aficionados are going to notice, you photo enthusiasts. Those of you who just want to snap the family dog catching the Frisbee and all that sort of thing, you're going to say, well, both look nice to me. Where it is noticeable is low light. Low light has gotten even better thanks to f1.5 very wide aperture. And honestly, Samsung does a lot of very good processing here. When you're buying a camera phone, what you're getting here is a combination of some good hardware and some really good software. I always call it the Photoshop guru in a box that's inside of your phone. And part of what you're going to like about one phone over another is how the manufacturer has chosen to use the software to process those images. Samsung does a very good job in the low light images of removing noise. So you'll look at it and you'll think, my God, it's the most amazing camera I've ever seen. I don't see any of that usual, you know, kind of grainy look. They're smoothing it out, but they're doing a very good job. They don't over focus too much, over sharpen rather, when you're shooting nature photos, thank God, which used to be a problem. So if you're shooting trees, every leaf is not painfully sharp anymore. It compares very well to the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL, honestly. Each is going to win and lose some, but they're both going to be so close. And unless you're really nitpicking, it would be a really hard call there. And I would say that it is above the iPhone X in terms of image quality. It can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second. It has hyperlapse, which is fast speed. You can see that on screen. It has slow-mo 720p at 960 frames per second. That's kind of been a Sony thing, and now they're doing it too. And it's pretty cool. What it does is, you know, it sounds hard to use. It's really not that hard to use. You aim it at something that you're interested in slowing down, and it watches the scene once you start recording video, and it waits to see movement. And once it sees movement, it starts the slow down thing. Sounds more complicated than it is. I don't think it's going to be the greatest thing in the world for catching maybe a motocross dude doing tricks in the air or something like that, because it's just not that fast to react, but it worked for our waterfall picture just fine. It has tracking autofocus. It has face detection. You get the idea. It has just about everything. The Pro mode is really nice. It gives you control over all sorts of stuff. And I kind of like that, though I have to say auto mode, which is the way that I shot most of the sample pictures that you're seeing, does a real good job of things. We have the new AR emoji, including Mickey and Minnie Mouse, now available for free download. So you got humans, you've got animals, you've got Simoji. What can I tell you? It's their version of what Apple did with the Animoji, and just like with the iPhone, I thought it was real fun for about 2 days and I never used it again, so I leave that up to you. Now, of course, there's a lot of competition out there, and there are phones that are upcoming. I think a lot of you, particularly if you're photo enthusiasts and you're willing to spend a whole lot of money, are also considering, perhaps anyway, the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL. With this, you're going to get a better quality display, certainly a micro SD card slot, a headphone jack, wireless charging. You get the idea. But what's the downside? You're not going to get OS updates really quick or for years to come. Like I said, Samsung is really slow about that. You're not going to get really clean Android, which means you're probably more likely going to see some slowdowns or some little quirks in the Samsung before you're going to see those on the Pixel. Now, how about if you have a Samsung Galaxy Note 8 and you're one of those enthusiasts who's just 6 months later, you're starting to get the itch? You know, there's really not that great a leap, other than for the biometrics, the phone unlocking, which is not a joyous experience on the Note 8, at least not for me. Um, yeah, if you need that S Pen too, then there's absolutely just no way. I would say if you're a Note person, just wait for that Note 9 to come along. So that's the Samsung Galaxy S9 and the S9 Plus, available starting today on pretty much every carrier everywhere in the world. As you can tell, I like the phones. Samsung has done a wonderful job here. And as they should, these are expensive phones, though, with all the deals between Samsung having trade-in deals, your carrier having yearly upgrade plans, BOGOs, all this sort of thing. With Samsung products, they're often a lot more attainable than they seem to be, especially if you have a little patience and you hunt around for some of those many sales that are going to happen. They've done the right things here. They've made these more enjoyable phones. Is this going to change your life if you move from an S8 to an S9? No, but if you have the yearly upgrade plan, there's a lot here that you're going to enjoy. That's the gist of it today with today's smartphones. They're also darn good. The improvements are incremental, and really it is a device that we use every single day. So even those little things that aren't quite right can really make you feel a little crazy and a little cranky and make you want to switch. So they're doing the right things. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.